Buckle up, sports fanatics. This is the Sports Chasers Podcast, your HQ for in-depth sports talk. Join host Kevin L. Warren and crew as they dissect the hottest stories, ignite debates, and bring you closer to the action. From locker room whispers to expert takes, we cover it all. It's game time, so strap in and grab a drink. The Sports Chasers Podcast starts right now.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? What's happening, everybody? It's another edition of the Sports Chasers Podcast, but it's the interview edition, man. Tonight, we got a great treat tonight, man. We got Coach Extraordinaire in the house. We'll introduce him here in a second, man, but let's meet the crew. We got the DA. DA, what's up, man? What's happening?
Man, I'm tired. You know what?
DA has been chauffeur today.
Yeah,
Again, this is a good day. It's another edition of the Sports Chasers Podcast. Upon my voice, make sure you like, click, and subscribe to the YouTube channel on the podcasting side. Make sure you give us that 5-star review, 5-star. Also, leave your likes and your comments and all that great stuff there as we try to build this platform, man, for all those that love and really love sports and like it with no narratives, none of that stuff, man. We give it to you unadulterated, man. But hey, man, without further ado, man, hey, we're gonna meet our guest for tonight, man. Let me pull up his credentials here, man. He's a Long Island guy from Port Washington, man. Hey, shout out to Port Washington, Long Island. Jared Zeidman steps into the itinerary world with the literary world with his debut book called Nail the Recruiting Process.
wow.
Bringing with him nearly 15 years of extensive experience in college athletics. Prior to this venture, Jared made his courageous decision to step away from his full-time coaching and focus on his recovery from his severe complication with COVID-19. Currently serving as a consultant for college coaching, aiming to build successful programs and high school athletics seeking recruitment. Zeidman is recognized by his dynamic energy, developmental lens on coaching, and a passion for sports that extends beyond the field of play. Jared has an academic background, master's higher education from State University of New York at Buffalo. SUNY, yeah. I'm a CUNY guy for all those who want to know.
Yeah, I was too for a while.
Yeah,
I was both.
Bachelor in Media Studies from Quinn. I never can say their name right.
Say QU. Save yourself. Say QU. I couldn't spell it for 2 years.
No, you can't spell it, but you can say Quinnipiac.
Quinnipiac. I gotta say it like that. Hey, man, without further ado, man, Jared Zeidman. Jared, welcome to the show. Welcome to the Sports Chasers, man.
Thanks for having me, dude. So I've seen a lot of your content on TikTok. That was my first time hearing the beat in the intro, and I was really excited. That kind of got me in a really good zone for this interview.
Man, shout out to my brother. He was the one that picked out that beat for us, man, and he'll be on here shortly, man. But Jared, thank you, man, for coming through, man. Me and you had a short conversation via Zoom a couple weeks ago. Where me and you connected, and we actually met on Pod Match, man. Shout out to Pod Match again, man. Another great guest here, man. And me and Jared, we connected. You know, like I said, he's from Long Island, and me and him actually grew up pretty much in the same hood. He's in Marine Park, and I was in the Flatbush Flatlands area. Me and D Dubs, and we connected. And he's a coach. He told me how that with his overcoming COVID, almost, I guess, dying, so to speak, right?
Yeah, it was not fun.
Yeah,
I'm sure it wasn't, man.
I mean, I had it, and it definitely wasn't fun. But yeah, and shout out to you. Welcome to the show, man. I'm gonna give you the floor right now. Welcome, bro.
Yeah, much appreciated. I appreciate you having me. And I would say for your listeners, this is kind of my goal, and this is kind of what I'm doing right now. So I'm aggressively doing physical therapy and occupational therapy, trying to get back into coaching. I'm very, very lucky that my last stop was a rebuild with the Division I program, and the rebuild went really well. So thankfully, I have a great relationship with my head coach, and there's an opening for me to jump back in once I'm cleared. But doctors have basically been very straight up with me. They're like, we do not know when this is going to be. So like, we want you to kind of enjoy life as it comes right now and, seek different purpose and different things. And happy coincidence. As soon as I announced publicly that I was going to get out of coaching, some AAU coaches, including one I was very close with, threw me a couple of their kids that were having trouble making decisions in the process and didn't really know how to navigate the recruiting process. And I basically guided them. And one of them is going to be a scholarship athlete at the Division I level. The other one is going to be at an outstanding Division III program that actually played in the D3 National Championship this year. And I just decided to build on that. And I went out and I just interviewed a bunch, and I mean a bunch of college coaches to try to basically explain to high school athletes what this practice should look like, what you actually need. And, right before we were on air, DA talked to me a little bit about that grit and that toughness. And I do not think enough young people realize that that is being evaluated just as much as talent. And college coaches have their ways, of finding it. So now I'm out here spreading the good word, biding my time until I can get back into coaching. And thank you guys for having me, because I love having these conversations.
Great, man. I thank you for coming, for real. So this is a passion of mine, though I would never coach again.
This is DA's wheelhouse.
Yeah, I would never coach again. But what I coach football, youth football, but I would never do that again because of the dads and moms and the way things you have to explain so many things that are different than you may have had to explain 10 years ago to kids, because it was different. And I don't know when parents are like, oh, well, Jared said you're not good enough to play on my son's team, so I'm going to start my own AAU team, and we're going to be the Pelican next. And
yes, and as long as you put the word elite at the end, they will believe.
Oh.
As long as the name ends with elite, they will believe.
AAU just start letting everyone get a team, though. Like, that used to be a special thing. Like, when you got to the Florida back in the days, like, you knew you were good.
Yep.
I saw Doc Rivers and his sons playing against the Gauchos in the game, and then before that, BABC in Boston was playing, and like, it was a bunch of dudes there and guys from Florida, Jason Tatum. I was like, come on, man. Jared Sullinger. I'm like, come on, man. It used to be so special. And I think that's why Nike did what they did, because AAU was taking everyone's money, right?
Do you know?
Get mad at AAU, and yeah, you should be. Go ahead, Jared. I'm sorry.
No. I just want to build off you. If you want to know who or what I blame, it's this thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
social media.
So in the last, to give background, because DA, what you're talking about is the prime height of the sneaker wars, late 80s through mid 2000s, and you had to be on a sneaker circuit to really be taken seriously as an AAU kid.
Yeah.
And what ended up happening was everybody on all parts realized they can make more money if they spread the game. So now, in addition to Nike's Elite, where Nike has the teams, you can also pay and get in a lesser bracket. Same with Under Armour in another league called UA Rise. Now there's other showcases and other tournaments. And there's this weird dance, because some of it is important, because in one respect, the game has grown. So like, if you watched a D3 practice, you would be like, oh, these kids can go.
Oh, they can.
The game has grown and put, kids in these places. So some of these kids need these events because they're not going D1. And like, this is the avenue for them. But the problem, and this is to your point, is there is so much options out there that everyone's trying to be their own little enterprise. And the negative side effect is a lot, not all, because I've met some great parents, but a lot of parents now view paying for AAU the same way they'd view buying something on Amazon. I paid for a product. My kid did not develop under you the way that I thought my kid would develop under you, and I want my money back. When in reality, sports has never been up to the coach. The coach gives you a system and gives you guidance, but you can't make a horse drink. You can only lead them to the water.
Yeah.
Correct.
And, I mean, I'll be the first person to tell you, I wasn't ready to listen to anything when I was high school age. And this is my first thing I actually lead with when I talk to most kids is, I want you to do the things I didn't do. I did not play college basketball. I got very lucky with a grad school scholarship. I got in with the UB men's basketball program, and the rest kind of took care of itself. I got very lucky. But I wasn't.
University of Buffalo?
Yes, sir.
That's it. Yeah.
Was it called? I'm sorry. I didn't
University of Buffalo.
Yep,
Okay.
University of Buffalo.
Yeah.
And it's just been, I mean, it was great to see what high-level mid-major basketball looked like. It also taught me a lot personally, was like, oh, if you're going to coach kids, you got to walk the talk. You have to, to steal my old 90s hip hop, you have to come correct. Like you have to do the right things. And I get stuck sometimes now because it's a lot harder to tell a high school age kid that they're doing the wrong thing without their parents taking it as like a personal shot at their choices of parenting. When in reality, like none of this stuff is personal and none of this stuff is permanent. You can change anything I tell you to. That's why I'm telling you.
Yeah. It's funny you say that. Like, so first things first, like the funny thing is you take a D3 basketball player to the Y and he's mopping everyone there, right? It's
yes.
it's so horrible. Like my son, he played D1 basketball, right? He went to VMI and played. If he goes to the Y now, he is, probably 40 pounds heavier than what he was having kids and whatnot. If he can make it up and down the court, he'll win 5 games.
Yep.
Just with the jumper, right? And he'll, he'll sit down, try to find somebody else's prime team missed or something and get his air back and then, maybe play a little bit more until stuff starts to hurt, right?
Yeah.
But people don't, and he coached a team down here for years, 11-year-old kids, and he asked me to speak to them as a father to the other parents. And I told the parents all the things my son did to not be good enough to play at Villanova. 5 o'clock in the morning workouts every day, lifting weights, running, all these things. And you have to do, and that's just on the court. Off the court, have the right body language. Don't have the head down when something goes wrong. Don't do, because coaches watch body language real hard. All those things. I said, you got to be mindful of, have your, and at that time, your Facebook account had to be all sports. Like, don't be in your Facebook with a 40 ounce and smoking a blunt. Like, all those things are watched.
All matters.
Coaches, they have staff that do this. And I said, Dorian did all that to go to VMI. All that to go to VMI. So I said, if you think it's easy, you're just going to be, and Jay Wright's going to call your name, yes, you've got to be really good. And
not Jay Wright.
Really right.
Well, let me tell you this, because this is the angle that I'm going for. It took 15 years of being a coach to realize that saying to somebody, take it from me and my experience, doesn't work.
Yep,
they listen or they don't, and that's their prerogative. So my hunt was all of my mentors, all of them in all their different walks of life, despite all of their actual differences, their backgrounds, where they were from, even their political affiliations. Like, I've worked for everybody under the sun, but they all came back to the same 5 or 6 things that they look for in recruits. And I was always fascinated by that. So what I decided to do was I decided to kind of make my talking points bulletproof. I was like, I'm going to interview 50 coaches. And then I'm going to talk to a bunch of former college athletes, including athletes that transferred, that didn't have the right go around the first time. And I'm just going to connect the dots here. So now the good news is, when I say something, I'm kind of speaking for the coaching profession. And the best part about sharing some of this stuff on social media is, like, when I give sort of like a spicier take specifically to your stuff about AAU, I will get text messages from coaches that are like, I cannot like this publicly. Like, for the sake of my reputation and my recruiting, I cannot retweet this, but thank you so much for saying this. And, because I now have that data backing, I know this is kind of crazy, especially because I'm starting a new business project, but like, if you hear what I have to say and you don't want to work with me, that's cool. That's okay. I would rather have conversations with the kids where I tell them what they need to do to get better, and you could see how much they want the college experience, because they're like, yeah, I could do that. And that resilience, like you were talking about before.
Cool. So quick question. So how young do you start? And 2, if guys want to get with you, is there a Zoom? Will you set up a Zoom?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I do. So this is good. Let me walk you through it, because I think this is the business model I came to from mentors. I will always do a free consult first, because that's my opportunity. The same way you talked about the specific things that coaches look for when they recruit, I kind of look for those things when I do a consult. So, like, if I can give you a little bit of feedback on your game. So for example, kid that jumps out of the gym can make a lot of plays happen, but literally cannot put the ball in their left hand. If I tell you what I saw and I give you an idea about how you're going to be, scouted at the college level, I can tell immediately if we're going to vibe. So these people think that I'm very generous and giving the free consult. The free consult is just as much for me as it is for them, because it's not worth it for me to take on somebody that isn't going to do the work the same way it wouldn't be, in a college coach's best interest to take the kid on. So what I recommend kids do is they start feeling out the recruiting process when they're first years in high school or freshmen in high school. They should start figuring out what it is they want, because it's very hard to decide. Like, if you want to go D1, to your point, DA, if you want to go D1, a lot of times the end of your junior year of high school, it's too late. A lot of coaches have already built up their pool. They've built up their networks. They've been kids that have been hungry and gritty earlier. So first year is when you figure it out, assuming you've already been around the game and are continuing to grow your skills behind the scenes. Your first year of high school is when you figure it out. Your sophomore year of high school is when you really start promoting yourself and making connections. And the change that the transfer portal has made is, if you are too cool for school, if you just, do the Caitlin Clark approach or the Steph Curry approach, and if you just play your game and hope the attention comes, that comes for the top 200 kids in the country. But for the other 900 kids that make up Division I, it's not coming that way. So a lot of kids miss out by not initiating contact and having those social media highlight clips and stuff like that to send on the ready. That's my big thing.
Understand, only 17% of any athletes get to play D1 ball. So that's how many kids are playing high school ball, basketball, football, whatever. Mm-hmm. Only 17% get D1. Now, there's a lot of other people, and I'm talking about all of D1.
Yes.
And the rest are D2 and D3 and NAIA, which is not bad, because there's a place for everyone. Like, maybe you don't belong there. Now, some kids get overlooked, and you're from a small town, and believe me when I tell you, it's not a conspiracy, because they'll find you if you're good. Because that one thing about basketball is everyone talks.
Coming from the conspiracy theorists.
Yeah, but they'll find you. I mean, I knew a kid from
I love that, because that line works for both basketball and conspiracy theories. They will find you.
Yeah, they will find you, though.
Yeah, well, look at John Moran is a perfect example. He found him. I mean,
you can play, they'll find you.
They'll find you. You're right. You're right.
Well, and a lot of it has to do, and I think this is the other thing the kids don't get. Why was John Morant incredible at Murray State, but some other mid-majors may not have wanted him? Mm-hmm. A lot of these kids don't realize that when you're a coach, especially at the D1 level, you are trying to build a team in the style of basketball that you like playing. I think that that Hurley at UConn is actually a really good example of this right now, because he plays that constant pin down screening action, and the ball never sticks. It gets in the top of the key. So two things have to happen. You have to be a forward that can pass in his offense, or else you can't play for him. You cannot play for him if you can't pass it forward. And every other person that's on the floor has to be able to catch and shoot immediately. Come off a pin down screen, shoot the ball immediately.
Because that's what he did. He did it in high school. He did it in college. I watched that. Danny used to be in Harlem more than his father knows. I'm just want to let you know that. And if Danny looks at this, he'll say, "Oh, shit, that's deep." Being in Harlem more than his father knew, because he was under his brother. They would play Riverside Hawks. They would do this. They would do that. And I'd see this white kid, younger than me, hanging out. I'm like, okay. Once you're a baller, you're in. Once you're down, you are down. And he was. Did
you hear some of the stuff he had to say recently about parents and how he's looking into parents when he recruits?
No, I missed that one.
Yeah, go ahead, give it to us, Jared.
Oh, so very interestingly, both of the D1 National Championships head coaches, Dawn Staley and Danny Hurley, recently did public interviews where they specifically called out parental behavior. As you could probably imagine, Dawn Staley was a little bit more tactful than Danny Hurley. It was only 20 seconds before Danny Hurley started swearing about parents. But Danny Hurley was basically like, I have turned away top 5 kids because their parents were fans of them instead of parents. That was the exact language that he used. Dawn Staley, her more, I would say, deliberate approach, she said something to the effect of, the difference between me and your parents is that your parents love you enough to protect you from failing, and I love you enough to allow you to fail. And if you play for me, you're going to fail here, and I'm going to grow you. And not all parents are okay with that. And those are the ones I try to kind of steer from.
Yeah. Well, his father would not allow parents yelling at kids during games out there in Jersey. So his father wouldn't allow it. Like if you wasn't yelling at Ralph James, you were not doing the field of father like Robert Wordan. Like their parents were quiet. Like shh.
Well, and can I tell you, to your point about that, one of the craziest parts of the data that I got was not only is that a very common thing amongst college coaches that like they're kind of filtering out kids by their parents' behavior, but many very successful coaches shared with me deliberate strategies that they used on how they do it. Like very, very interesting things that the average high school kid and high school family would not even think of in the moment. For example, let's say I'm talking to a kid and trying to have a conversation with the kid. Parent starts speaking for a kid. I'm going to let the parent finish. I'm going to redirect a question intentionally to the kid, like a question that really only the kid could answer based on that parent's behavior. And then I'm just going to kind of take notes of what happens. If the parent talks for a kid, that's a red flag. Like just they and parent like, and it's funny because I bring this information back to the parents and like, you could see some parents like furiously taking notes and being like, this is real. Similarly, you go on a campus visit, right? You have a host and especially boys mess this up more than the girls do. The boys are like, okay, I believe that my host is here to like give me a resort experience for the next 48 hours.
Okay, so why is it that they don't send? Okay, let me be more politically correct in that. I was about to say something that was going to get me messed up.
Please don't. My business is still new, DA.
All of them are beautiful girls that will show you around the campus.
Yep.
If it's basketball, football, even more beautiful. But basketball, they're fine. Football, I got one that played football too. And now my son was like, "Wow, Dad, she is bad."
Dude, it is a deliberate. And this is, again, parents and kids do not realize this, especially when you get to that Power 5 level, Every part of your visit is a deliberately calculated experience to sell you that campus. Even the tour, when you're not with the coaches, people don't realize college tours were literally designed by consulting professionals to highlight every good part of the campus and eliminate every bad part of the campus and hope that you don't ask me about the bad stuff. Because then I can never say back to you, well, you didn't ask me about that. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so not only is there that dynamic, but they also, every coach I talk to, the most unanimously agreed upon thing, every coach I talked to told me that they sit down with the host afterwards to get feedback on the kid. So it's almost like they give you a couple of these little tests to see what your character and judgment is like behind the scenes, and then they're going to ask these kids how you did. So it's this unbelievable game. To your point, DA, they try to sell you the world. So you have to basically be buying a product and auditioning for a part at the same time when you're on these visits.
Let me jump in here real quick, Jared.
Yeah.
I like the way that you said how you kind of take notes on these parents because we see bad behavior, especially now, unfortunately, right? And kudos to you to not willing to put up even with the parents' bad behavior. Some coaches might be, hey, I'll put up with the bad behavior because of the talent. What do you think about that?
Oh, so now it's my turn to choose my words wisely. I'm with you, DA. Let me say it as politely as I can.
Go ahead.
Every coach has made this mistake, myself included. Every coach has made an ego-based recruiting decision where they brought on a kid who displayed all the red flags. They were enthusiastic about a kid because they saw the talent was there. And even if every other piece of that kid's behavior was driving 180 miles an hour through multiple red lights, you as a coach are like, this kid could tilt the scales with their talent. It only takes one experience of that kid torpedoing the locker room and going through the culture of the team where you're like, nope, we don't do that again. And you can tell in conversations with coaches, sort of the coaches that have already been through that and the coaches that have yet to go through that. And like, it's always interesting to me. And I guess for me, having lived it, Now I'm closer to 40. Right. I got 15 years of experience recruiting. So now there is a younger generation of coaches under me, which is interesting for me because I didn't feel that far removed from that generation, minus my horrible hairline. I felt like I was still a young coach until I started talking to some 25, 26-year-old assistant coaches that were like, well, I got to get this kid. And I was like, oh, you haven't learned yet. Okay, that will happen. And I'll be the first person to admit it. Like, coaching is not an exact science. And the biggest mistake that people make in terms of judging the recruiting process, I'm appealing to a room full of sports fans. You really think the Patriots drafted Tom Brady on purpose in the 7th round? You really think in the 7th round, a few picks away from Mr. Irrelevant, that the New England Patriots were like, oh, also, this is the quarterback of the future that we've strategically let slip to the 7th round?
Right. No.
That's not how this works.
No.
We're taking estimated guesses, and we can only go with the information we have the whole way.
Shout out to the Atlanta Falcons.
That's
the data that was given. So that's it.
Hey, data that you have. But I believe what you're saying, man. I've seen it.
Definitely.
And the reality is that especially in basketball, well, yeah, in all sports, but basketball more pointedly, the biggest and best coaches all have a Marcus Camby. Let's say he's bad, but right. You go back. See, I'm old enough to remember when there was a problem at UMass. With
the original John Calipari scandal.
Yeah. I remember Pitino's original problems. And one of my boys' son got caught up in the Louisville Pitino stuff. Mm-hmm. And it stuck his whole career. He didn't do anything wrong. But he just got caught up in some stuff. All these big-time coaches have a guy, but to what you're saying, to your point, Jared, that they have a guy that they said, listen, I can take a shit and make sugar, because all coaches believe they can take shit and make sugar because that's what their job is, right? Taking a load of kids and make them into a champion, but they also do it at an individual basis. And yeah, it'll get you messed up when you think you can all the time, because it's impossible.
You've invited me to be super real with you with what you just said. So let me frame this, Kevin and DA, specifically based on the conversation we had right before we went on air.
Yes.
The number one thing that I've learned about myself in coaching is I still have a lot to do to get better at coaching. And you realize what your limitations are in terms of specific things. So to give you mine, for example, I was always better on the defensive side of the ball than the offensive side of the ball. Chalk that up to being a child of the 90s with the New York Knicks. And oh my God, I love watching this team again because they're bringing that back. Like, blue collar basketball was my jam. So like, it was never more important to me that, like, if you could stationary catch and shoot a three, welcome, come on. Cause that's not what we're focusing on. Get in here and box out. Like that was the thing I wanted to do.
Yes.
Yeah. So for me, being able to surround myself with better offensive minds, being an assistant coach on a Division I program where I was working with two people that thought about offense differently than I did, it grew me. Coaches are still trying to grow and do those things. But again, they're going to pick recruits based on the style of basketball that they want to play. So if we can frame this to any young listeners you have or parents that have kids going through the process, I'm going to give you three basic things to think about. Decide what level you want to play at is your earliest sort of thing, so that you can build your goals around trying to get to that level. But then you need to also decide what type of coach you want to play for. Because the biggest mistake that I see kids make in this process is they try to do it's almost like they overcorrect from doing the wrong thing, and then they don't actually say what they mean. How do you want to be coached? Oh, you can coach me however you want. That's not true. I can't coach you however I want. I'll shut you down. And so learn, are you the type of person that really needs a fiery, high energy coach? Find that person. Are you the type of person that wants Phil Jackson Zen? Find that person. Yes. The better you get to know yourself in the high school level, and the more experiences you put yourself through, to your point earlier, DA, about the gauchos, the better served you'll be in the future. What I try to frame to the high school students, and now this is part 3. So part 1 is you assess what you want. Part 2 is you assess yourself. Part 3 is you start behaving like a college athlete right now. And you trust that if you start behaving like a college athlete right now, and also are engaging with coaches, and you're initiating that contact, you'll end up finding the correct fit for yourself, regardless of where it is. And I always everyone has a million reasons why it has to be D1 for them. And look, I get it. No one woke up at age 12 and rolled out of their Nick Sheets bed and said, yo, I want to play Division III basketball at a classical liberal arts college. Let's go. I get that. But at a certain point, it has to be more than just the glory of the game. It's got to be about the compete, the life skills you're going to get out of it. And I'm talking to people right now that are similar in age to me or maybe a little bit older, and you know how far sports has taken you in this world. That's the messaging I'm trying to give to kids. Those three things. That's how we can condense it.
Hey, Jared, you said something that just compete.
Yeah.
What do you feel about these kids now? Have you noticed the competition? Do they feel like they wanted to compete, or they seem like everything is it trickled down to everybody wants to team up and play together?
Yeah.
And, you know what I'm saying? They just don't have that We grew up in a time, and you said the New York Knicks, so shout out to you. I like you already.
Yeah, that's my team. Yeah.
That's
I love what they
on this panel.
I love what they doing right now.
Yeah.
But
It's a fever dream return to the 90s basketball. I'm here for it.
Oh my God. Yes.
Yeah.
But the lack of competition, I could say it started with a certain person. I don't want to give him all the credit, but it just seems like
I know who you're talking about, though. It's okay. We don't have to say his name, but I'm with you.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
He's
But,
not Lord Voldemort, y'all. God damn.
Just the competition is just it's just not there like it used to be.
Yeah.
It depends, man.
You find that with the kids.
Yeah. So competition, there's a lot of different intersections that I think have played a role that are actually outside of sports. I think everybody is just really individualistic more than they used to be. And everybody's really excited to say that they're the best at something. And something that's really weird about this internet age is you can deep dive in the internet and find people that are the best at really obscure things, speed running video games or cooking a specific dish in 5 minutes. And the way that transcends to sports is no one is too strong, but most people, I'll say it this way, D, most people are not happy anymore if they're just part of something that is the best. They have to be the best. So what they do to satisfy themselves is they go to somewhere where they can be the best, and it diminishes the experience. They can be the best, but the team is not good. They could be the best, and the team goes 0 for the season, but they were the leading scorer. And that is the thing that I think is driving it mentally. I want to go back to the Knicks because I think the Knicks are doing something specifically that kind of points out the lack of compete. I've never in my life thought that an NBA coach would have to sit down his guards and say, yo, I need you to box out. That usually is not something that happens in professional basketball. And Josh Hart just played 46 minutes, didn't score, and got every offensive rebound available. DA, what you got?
I'll say one thing, and this goes back to what you said, right? So
yeah,
even in the NBA, you're going to pull in players that do what you need them to do. People thought he was, and it wasn't him. He had probably a conversation with Worldwide West or whoever his name, and they said, "Listen, man, I like these Villanova kids, and it don't." Yes. So what happened was they got one, and then they got two, right? And when DiVincenzo came, then they said, "Whoa, okay,
we like this.
Here. We like this," and then they went and got Hart, right? Mm-hmm. So what will happen is, then they'll start to call Jay Wright on the low. Yeah. They're like, yo, look, you got any big dudes that maybe didn't go? No, because there's some dudes sitting in the G League. Because there's a big dude that played there 2 years ago. Big light-skinned kid, dunked the ball all the time. He's not in the league now. He may be in the G League. Maybe
incredibly long last name. Yes. Hernan Gomez. Played, he was in the Adam Sandler movie too. Yeah.
So what they'll do is they'll grab him because he's that type of dude.
Yes.
And what happens is it's always if the Knicks win the championship, then everybody's going to start to do what they did.
And right? I think the impression I get is people are shocked by their compete level.
Mm-hmm. They shouldn't be. The reason why the Knicks are doing well because they didn't have to turn it off and on.
Exactly. They just compete.
Year, right? So other teams that want to turn it on in the playoffs, they can't because the other teams got it turned on, right?
Yeah, you can't catch up with the compete. It's been there for the whole season.
There you go.
What they do.
Bingo.
This is what they do. So it's a good thing. I don't have a problem with it.
Bingo.
Listen,
Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was going to say, and D, this is where I could bring that full circle after using the Knicks example. So I was very fortunate before everything went down with COVID. I got in with a D1 staff on the women's side that was tasked with rebuilding Canisius in Buffalo, which was not doing so hot upon our arrival. And our whole thing was compete. And we got better and better over the course of our 3 seasons. We just had our best season in more than 15 years at Canisius on the women's side. And we didn't do it in a flashy way. Like, we did it with defense and blue collar and gritty and rebounds. And it's funny because it's never the prettiest. Do I still get like acid reflux 4 or 5 Jalen Brunson possessions a game? Hell yeah. But to me, basketball has always been, to your point about that, compete. Did you guys hear what the commissioner, Adam Silver, said about development and the compete? Talking about how the Europeans are doing it better than the Americans are right now at the developmental level.
Look at Jokic.
Mm-hmm. It's pretty simple, though.
As DA says, what's the other cat? He's been playing with grown men.
Yeah,
since he was 10 years old.
Luka's been playing since he was a pro, right? And
Yeah,
you know, like going back, me and Jared, like when Gauchos used to play the Russian team, and you had to bring back in the 80s like your best dudes to play them because these kids go to academy overseas.
Yeah.
And that's all they do. So like you got to think of IMG Academy that they have here over there, period. Everything is mouth of the South. What's that? In Virginia, the school in Virginia, Oak Hill Academy, where you go there to play ball.
Yes.
Right. So that's what they do overseas. Like that's what they do. And they're going to get good at it. And the compete part here that I wanted to also, because we talked about this earlier, Jared was talking about the internet, how it kind of fostered that before you got to play a game, you were looking on the internet to see who you were playing against. Right. And that hurt my son because he would see who was ranked above him in the country. And then he would, kind of tear them a new asshole that game. But he wasn't consistent against dudes that weren't above him. And that's what hurt him. So what I'm saying is that the internet, the way the AAU is structured now, because it's not AAU anymore, that doesn't really matter for big-time basketball players. You're on a shoe tour or a shoe tournament thing. So in those tournaments, they go hard, right? So Nike Elite, because they'll throw you out. Like if you're on the Nike Elite team, your team's not winning. What was that team down here, Kev? The Royals. Yes. They got thrown out. They were what we'll call a beginning Nike team, and they got thrown out of the EYBL because they went a whole season 0-22. They didn't win a game, and they got pushed out. So Nike's not letting you stay there. The high level Under Armour tournament, Adidas tournament, and Reebok is coming back. So, they want to get back to that money. They're going to start their tournament again. And, those kids, they hang out with each other a whole tour. They're around each other for game after game, like 30, 40 games a summer. They become friends. And the one thing I can say is that when they're athletes, like those guys don't really have a lot of friends other than the dudes they ball against or ball with. So that's why when they get to the league, they're all homies because they don't have Dorian doesn't have a whole bunch of friends. Like
the circuit became their network.
Yeah,
the circuit became their network.
Yeah,
and I always had this thing
they played with. So
and I also don't want to glorify people being belligerent. Like the Detroit Pistons did some dirty stuff even when they were winning the league. But I mentioned that team specifically because I always have this image from my childhood of Magic kisses Isaiah on the forehead before game 1. And that was almost emblematic of like, you're my person. I got you, but I'm going to try to decapitate you for this 7-game series. And then we're going to hug again when this is over. Yep. And I can tell you, for me personally, the way I'm wired, my favorite people to compete against in this profession are my friends. Cause I want to know where I stand and I like to compete, but I can turn that off and I can go home And if I lose, I don't cry to my wife like, what does this mean about me as a person if I lost? Like, and it just, I think there's a lot more of that. People get really interconnected with the result. And to your point about the internet, DA, there's a million different reasons to focus on everything aside from what's important, which is your own personal development.
Right.
You keep growing as a player, and the outcome of the game is an indicator of how that growth is going. That's it.
Let me ask you this, Jared. What kind of coach are you? What kind of coach are you?
Too energetic for his own good. I was a very energetic coach. I think because of my health stuff, I will be a little bit calmer upon my return to the sidelines. But my thing was, and I think kids struggled with me this, I had standards. So the thing I would say to kids.
Let me stop you. No.
Yeah.
That's good to have standards.
If they 100%. It's not good for them.
Yeah, not good for them. Especially if they don't follow it. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. And so this was the way that I started trying to kind of frame it to players. I remember doing this very specifically after watching the Villanova National Championship, actually, with Brunson and Hart in them. The next time we had a team meeting, I said, hey, I've heard some rumblings that players think I play favorites. So I'm going to put this to rest right now. I 100% play favorites. The difference is I'm going to tell you exactly what my favorites are. So you can report back to anyone that asks you what my favorites do. And if you do those things, you too can be one of my favorites.
There you go.
And
love it.
Yeah. And my thing was, and maybe this will make sense given what we're talking about now. I wanted the fire and the emotion and the compete there, but I wanted the mental emotion gone. So I tried to make as many objective decisions as I can. Something that really helped me with this is I got really big into analytics. So like I like to coach teams that shot more threes. I like to coach teams that played defensive possessions a very specific way to try to accelerate how many times. Like basically my goal was we use 10 to 15 seconds of the shot clock max, and then we get you to make a decision in 10 to 15 seconds, either to huck up a bad shot or turn the ball over, so that no matter what happens in each game, we shoot the ball 15 to 20 more times. Like that was the kind of the data ball I played. And because that was my style, I was very open with players about that. And I would say to them, this is what we're doing. So these are the people that are going to start the game. And we're going to get stats over the course of the game. We're going to evaluate how well you're doing. And something that I was really proud of in the years that I was standing and acting as the head coach was I had some captains that really bought into that. So like if it was late game and one of the captains was having a tough game, they were cool. Then they understood like, okay, somebody else is getting a shot right now. There were also some games, like there was a game I was a part of. Bless her heart. I love this kid. It was offensively the ugliest game I was ever been affiliated with. I think it was like both teams didn't break 50. Incredible defense, both sides. And I had a kid that was playing great defense, and I wanted to sub defense for offense with her. And she grabbed my leg in the huddle and said, do not sub me. I can stop this kid. Give me a chance to stop this kid, and then we'll figure it out. That kid stays on the court and hits a buzzer beater, like 2 minutes of gameplay later. And so, like, I've always tried to have that back and forth with my players, but it took that kid, that conversation that she had with me in the sideline, she was a senior. Like, it took her first year and her sophomore year to get comfortable having those types of discussions with me. And what I would say is no coach is for everybody. And for that style, I probably wasn't for everybody. Like, I was willing, and this is where I love of Tibbs with the Knicks. He's got 8 people that does it the way he wants to do it. Those 8 people play. Would I, in a perfect scenario, would I like to do it with 10 so he could play as up-tempo as possible? Absolutely. But that year, if I have 8, I have 8. Yeah, that's the deal.
That's my only issue with Tibbs. I wish he would add.
Oh, that all of his players, by the time you get to the second round of the playoffs, every single one of his players is being held up by tape?
Yeah, they did. They did, man.
You just seen, look at OG. OG's got so much energy. He's doing so good with his team, and he's got tape. He has more tape than visible skin right now.
Hey, Jared, this has been these guys. This whole thing about Tibbs. I'll be telling them, I said, yo, man, Tibbs is it. Yeah. These guys are like, nah, Tibbs, man, Tibbs be running their guys into the ground. And he does. He does. But this year it's a little bit different.
No, he still has.
He has, but these guys are responding. So I mean, hey,
and it's just everybody else can't do it. they can't.
Well, and that's what I was going to ask.
Right.
Do you think that this is this like perfect marriage between this is the perfect coach for the perfect city that responds to basketball like this, who now has a management team that's like, I could find you these dudes. To your point, DA, about the Villanova guys.
100%.
I don't think you could sell a lot of modern NBA players on the basketball the Knicks are playing, but you could sell 3 people that won a national championship in college playing that way.
Absolutely. Yes.
And that's
totally
why
agree.
we'll see what Randall does next year.
Mhm.
He didn't come back. No, he wanted to come back. And that's where I'm thinking it worked, because my New York sources said he wanted to come back, but the team held him out. So
can I give you the spiciest take ever? This is going to get really dorky. If you allow me to do this.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I do not know what this series looks like if Randall is healthy. I do not think it looks the same.
No, it's not as good.
And you keep talking. I can hear you, but I'm gonna grab my little basketball court, and we're gonna get really dorky.
Yeah, we're worse off because he would take more shots.
Hey
He
man,
would take possessions away. He would actually speed it up.
I'm already got him traded already, man. In my mind, I'm already trading him. I'm trading him.
He would have. I think that if he was there, he takes the ball because he has to dribble twice before he makes any move, and that's just time, right? And he's not as good a great defender. But the one thing he will do as we get further away to the championship is that he will be a good decoy, because you have to
100%.
Yep.
You have to guard him. So when you get
the
to
place,
Boston,
the place where he's really, to that exact point, DA, the place where he's missing the most, where we miss him the most, he's the only real big that can pick and pop with Brunson. There's nobody else that can really pick and pop. OG's a guard. This is my thing, though. And I did a little drawing, and I hope I can get this on the screen. I can. So that's Randall. That circle with an R is Randall with the ball on the left side of the court. And what these teams consistently did to him these last 2 years of the playoffs, the Hawks, that series right after COVID with Trae Young,
right?
The Hawks were the first team to do this to him. They can't get called for defensive 3 seconds. So they would just put a help defender on the left side, and he would just get stuck with the ball. And there was nothing he could do with the basketball. And my big beef is, like, the best part about what's happening with the current Knicks team is the ball never sticks. The only time the ball is really in somebody's hands right now is if Brunson is trying to do work off ball screens and the ball is supposed to be in his hands.
Yeah.
But like when the ball sticks with Randall, to your point, DA, about those 2 dribbles. So he sees the trap. He takes 2 dribbles. By the time he takes his second dribble, he can't do anything with the ball.
Man, I saw him catch the ball, Jared, at the foul line extended twice. Back to the basket. And everybody on their team knew he was going to turn left 3 times in a row, and he got ripped 3 times in a row. Turned the TV off last year and just.
And I will say this, like, I actually respect his game. And I've heard some of the things, like, you know, when Kobe had these incredible things to say about him as a rookie, that like this guy at least understands how to work and he's going to continue working on his game. Like, I respect him, the hooper. I don't know if he's the correct fit. And especially now that you're seeing, you know, Joel Embiid's had a wild season. Although, you know, I prefer a few less Street Fighter moves per game from Joel Embiid.
Yeah,
that guy plays dirty, bro.
I don't like that dude, but
yeah, a few less hurricane kicks per game, I'm cool with. But like the fact that the Knicks, he had his one like Mount Rushmore game, and then the Knicks were right back to, yeah, you guys are going to score 90. We're fine. I just respect it.
I definitely like the Knicks. This has turned into a Knicks thing, but you got 40.
That's okay.
I'm cool with it. It's our show. We do what we want to do, right? You know what I do appreciate, and you said this earlier. What I do appreciate about this Knicks team, it just absolutely just remind you of little grandeur of the '90s teams, and you know that grit, that grind. Like that first game, when at the very end of the game, and the Philly fans and all the other fans were crying that they didn't call timeout. Philadelphia fans. Stop it. Y'all let Hartenstein, again, we talk about effort and competing. Hartenstein grabbed not 1, not 2, but 3 offensive rebounds in a row.
In like a 15-second span of basketball.
That's effort.
Yeah, and it's a lot. It's effort and it's bad coaching on their side. Because if Embiid can't do it, then you got Mo Bamba, you got another 7-footer at that time of the game. Not for offense. Like, you could just took Tobias Harris out. If you needed someone to rebound, you needed to have somebody in the game to rebound. right? Because
But doesn't
MB can't do it. And
doesn't it look to you? Oh, say it again, D. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm sorry.
I was saying, as a coach, the coach has to know. I got a dude that can't jump. He can't rebound. You got to know that.
Doesn't it look to you like one team in this series wants every loose ball way more than the other team?
Oh, they do. Their coach should do that.
Mm-hmm. And so it's funny. We bring this full circle. This is how we can bring it back, Kevin. I got you. When I would apply for new positions, you'd be asked to have a portfolio and like a identity. And I literally wrote, my defensive identity is simple. You will hate playing us. You will absolutely hate playing us. And it's just like, if you score, you're going to feel like you really earned it against clean, physical team defense. And it's very hard for teams to stay composed, whether it's the high school level, 32 minutes of that, the college level, 40 minutes of that, or the pro game, 48 minutes of that, or 40 on the women's side. It's really hard to do it.
Right. And Jared, what I want to also, just to tie it back into with some of the other stuff, that's probably the reason why, even though you'll see a lot of great offensive clips and whatnot from the Nike tour or whatever, these guys don't practice, so they can't play defense. There's no one thing. If you're on a showcase practice team, you'll never play defense because defense has to be done practice after practice after practice because you got the imaginary string that I remember Dorian had a coach that they actually had the rope around them. So like you couldn't move to one spot on the court with somebody else moving. You have to do that. So when you're on a team that you only come in, Kevin flies in to play with whoever, you're not going to play any defense because you're not going to practice any defense.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest, problem with those guys.
So it's funny. So some of my work, and I actually, a really interesting series of events happened to prompt me to think differently about this because I kind of have two battles at the same time. And I really don't work with anybody in the middle. I only really work with the extremes. Either it's a really good high school or AAU program, and they want me to help better educate the parents, or it's parents that are with, to your point, a program that just rolls the ball out, and they feel like there's not enough skill development, and they want to know what to do. So I'm usually working with one of those two sides. And I had a session last week with an AAU program, and I actually was telling them, like, when I'm a college coach, I'm watching you play. And even if you're only a sophomore or a junior, I'm kind of watching you play, and then I'm like, daydream sequence. What is this going to look like in 4 years? And the two things that people really do to hurt themselves are both on the defensive side of the ball. Thing one, they cannot keep a body in front of them without fouling. Thing two, they either don't communicate help or they don't get to help, to your point, DA. So what I've been trying to teach, again, if you want to get a little dorky, you know how like every well-intended person says, put your hands up on defense when you're off the ball? I try to next level it with kids. Like, yes, you're correct. Hands up on defense, but what are your hands doing? So if I'm in help or anything, I want 100% of the time, I want to be able to take one hand, you can kind of see it, point of the ball. My other hand is pointing at whoever I'm guarding, and both my hands are up. So now my hands are just instinctively in a passing lane. Like I'm just instinctively in that passing lane. I can disrupt whatever. And then because I can see both of these things, when someone cuts or when someone screens, I can say something.
Nice. Go ahead, D-Dubs, you had a question?
You got one, Dev? D?
No, I'm good.
Okay, so my next question, follow up. Okay, so you said the defense, and so we know how you have all these places now where they're training 5-year-old to do slides and box jumps at 4 years old.
The vintage 7-year-old Euro step. File that under unnecessary.
So what, as a coach, do you like for kids to play more than one sport, which I'm a big proponent of, and two, how do you feel about these places that are training kids? Because again, that goes up to God, you took your hat off. So I guess I'm bald too. I can take it off.
I can put it back on. You tell me what you need, and I got you. I was just getting a little hot in here.
Okay. All right. Well,
this is hey.
Okay.
I think
back of the ball heads is Onyx.
I think we're family now.
Oh yeah. You
okay.
Back of the ball.
This is real stuff.
So like the reason I says I down here, whatever. they got these places now all over the place where they're, taking kids in, getting money out of the parents, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which, oh man, we teach my son to run a 40-yard at this, and they're going to be squatting 800 pounds by the time they're 12, blah, 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 right? They give these kids all these expectations because they are training them, right? But they're training them to do a specific thing, and if they don't do it right, they may never get to whatever. Do you see that being something that kind of falls into the parents being bad parents because they've been paying? It's not just them been paying you, Jared, as the AAU coach. They've been paying, Coach Kevin since the boy was born. So they're all broke now because they're all in on trying to get their kid to be a pro something, and they don't even know. Like,
I'm
when
going to
does
give you
begin and where does it end?
I'm going to give you a real story. I used to be very dismissive of this, like why parents fall for this rabbit hole, but then something really interesting happened to me. So I've been doing the consulting now for 6 months. This is still a very new thing. I formally launched my website in January. The book literally comes out tomorrow. So this is all brand new. As I started posting content, my Instagram game is growing. I started with nothing. I've got a couple thousand followers. It's going great. I cannot figure out TikTok for the life of me. I gotta take more pages out of your playbook with TikTok. But here's something I learned. I started posting my content on Instagram. And within 5 days of me starting to post content, the algorithm had pegged me as someone that wants to become an influencer. I no longer actually enjoy Instagram anymore because every time I go on, the content I get fed is, you don't have enough followers. Here's how you make better content. Here's how you do this. Here's how you do this. So I can only imagine if you're a parent that has a young kid that says they like basketball, it's only 5 or 6 days before the algorithm starts feeding you content about how you're not doing enough and you need to do more and this and that and this and that. Here's where this matters. One of my favorite pieces of data from the book, the average response when I ask coaches, scale of 1 to 10, how important is it that you're recruiting a single sport athlete? 10 has to be a single sport athlete. 1 doesn't matter to me at all. 48 out of the 50 coaches picked a 1. They don't care. And interestingly, I could substantiate some of that data personally. Our first recruiting class at Canisius for the rebuild, 3 of the 4 players were all conference athletes in a different sport. They still had time to play AAU, still had time to go play with the trainer, had a lot of experience. And I got that data and I talked to them about it. I talked to the players about the data. I was like, what do you make of this? And the most common feedback I got back from them was the coach that actually taught me the most about dealing with adversity was not my basketball coach, because basketball was the thing I was most naturally gifted at. It was doing this other sport where I couldn't figure it out. And I had to learn how to just be one of the guys, like one of the players on the team. I had never thought about that, and that was super powerful for me. So now let's go back to that.
Understand
what the parents make decisions out of fear, and I get it to an extent. But what I always get back to in my conversation with parents, I'll always say something, and the conversation will end up with, "But what if the kid has a bad experience, or what if the kid doesn't play, or what if this happens, or what if that happens?" And what I say is, "Hey, at a certain point, the kid has to bet on themselves. You need to look at your kid and need to ask your kid, are you comfortable doing this? Are you comfortable taking this risk? And if the answer is yes, you got to let them go. You have any idea how happy I am that I didn't have a smartphone when I was in college so my parents keep track of every stupid thing that I did? Like, I can't always blame parents for making fear-based decisions.
Correct.
But now, to your point, DA, you follow that money. It's easy to scare a parent into spending. It's easy to tell a parent, man, if your kid can't run 40 yards with a parachute attached to them at age 12 while they're blindfolded, they'll never go to UConn. Like, it's a real thing. So I think, I stick with that old Dave Chappelle thing. I used to call these parents crazy, and then I realized what was making them crazy, and it's that the environment makes them a little bit sick. But I would encourage, like, seriously, if you are a kid that loves basketball, get better at basketball. You don't have to only love basketball to be good at basketball. LeBron James played high school football. Can you imagine what he would have been like as a tight end? Mentally, it might have been tough because he would just ask for pass interference on every call and then get the coach fired. But that's okay.
Or ask for more help. Ask for more help. That's the problem.
Can't flop in the NFL.
Jared,
but Does that touch on it for you, DA, though? Like, does that kind of get what you were getting at?
Yeah, because I like you said, the parents are only going to take in what they want to take in. But
yeah,
I think this gives them kind of a rounded overall kind of like, look, you don't have to do this. You don't have to do that. Speak to your kids. Talk to your kids. Be honest. Watch your kids, right? Because, there'll come the time when, and I'm going to try to do a sports thing with youth coaches. And, my thing is, at what point do you start telling these parents, like, hey, listen, your son may not blah, 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 right? I don't want to keep taking your money. That may never happen, right? But I there has to be a point in time where someone's saying, listen, man, this doesn't look like you're going to do this. Like, it doesn't mean that you won't be great at something. You just may be really good at this, but you may not ever be a great basketball player.
Can I bring this full circle? Because what you just said is really important. The best advice I can give anyone that's into basketball, that's thinking about playing college basketball, something that will check your hoop dreams a little bit, go watch a D3 team practice. And here's why. You're going to meet a coach that has made a career out of coaching professionally, that loves what they do at the Division III level. I was one of those coaches for a minute. You're going to meet a team that gets held accountable by that coach, that has standards that are the same as Division I standards. You're going to meet people that hold one another accountable. You're going to meet people that battle and practice hard and practice. And you're going to be sitting there and you're going to be like, oh, this is D3. I thought only D1 did this. And what I'm trying to explain to you is, no. College basketball does this. I want as many people to go for college athletics in general. My heart's obviously with basketball, but I want them to go for it, again, because of the life experiences that you get out of playing a team sport at the high level. There's so much. Do not just let this sport use you. Use the sport and gain the skills out of it. It could be huge for you. But the knowledge base is what gets people. They only believe what they see on social media. They only believe what they hear anecdotally. You guys shouted out CUNY. You could watch 10 different teams practice on a 2-stop subway ride. Go watch.
Facts.
Yep.
Go watch.
Shout out to BMCC, Borough Manhattan Community College.
Let's go.
Yep. Man,
that's my big thing.
And that's kind of how you know, right? Because in New York, at least, the good high school kids in the summer and in the off day, they go play against college kids. Yeah. Like, if you're a good high school kid, you don't play against high school kids.
I shared this story with Kevin when we first chatted a couple weeks back. Anytime I would go to my grandmother's house in Marine Park, I would bring shorts and sneakers with me. And this is from like age 12 on. And, I wasn't good enough to do this. I was just bold. No one would let me play because I was a kid. And I would literally wait for someone to get hurt and get on the court. That's how I'd play. I would wait for somebody to get hurt. I would be serviceable. I would make a couple buckets and we'd win and I'd stay on. And if we lose, that would probably it for the day because no one was going to pick me up because I was too young. But like, the kids these days don't have those types of experiences. They don't have experiences where nobody picks them. They don't have the type of experiences where they just have to be bold and put themselves out there and hope that like literally like a 25-year-old doesn't grab them by the shirt and throw them off the court. And
they actually don't go to courts at all. Like they had
exactly.
North Carolina, a guy went to
the park courts are empty. The park courts are empty.
Yes.
He went to the court. My son went to the courts and he's like, there's nobody here, Pop.
It's empty.
I'm going to go to the LA Fitness or the Y.
Yeah.
Well, there you go with your boys and you can make your run. The thing about the outside court was somebody else makes your run for you. Either they put you down or you don't.
Yeah.
Yes.
And if you lose, you're gone.
Yes. But do you know where you learn? Do you know where you learn to hate losing? The park.
There.
You learn to hate losing in the park because if you lose, there's a real chance you don't get to play anymore. And you learn that all you want to do is play. I just love playing. I just love competing. So I better not mess this up. And I trust me, I know that because I messed it up a bunch.
I used to take my son and just leave him. He'd be like, Pop, where you going? I'm leaving. I wasn't leaving. I just go other side.
Yeah.
Monkey ball.
Well, and
play with the big
so the
kids.
question becomes, in this day and age, if we want to continue growing the game, if we want to continue seeing the game that we love move in a positive direction, what experience can we give these kids that equates to what we're talking about? where we force them to be bold, where we force them to organize something on their own, not something that was sponsored by Gatorade or Nike. You figure out pickup with your people, and you iron sharpens iron, try to get better at competing.
The NBA has to step. Mm-hmm. The NBA has to step back into that the community basketball and getting kids back to playing outside and have that whole thing start again, because where it's at today, we're not going to catch Europe. And, you got South America coming right behind them. All right. So being broke always makes you a better player.
France too.
And if you think you're in America broke, imagine being broke elsewhere. And that's why these kids make it.
They grind.
That's why those kids from Europe, they make it, because
resilience.
They're playing for food, man. I say all the time with soccer, you're going to be better if you're playing for food than you are if you're playing for orange slices.
Yeah. Period. And this doesn't mean, and again, one of the other data points from the book is that one of the things coaches are really weary of is other coaches. Like, we in the coaching profession think that like 20% of the coaching community is just really bad. Like that's a thing. So I'm not going to sit here and defend every college coach and pretend that we have this entire thing figured out. But I am going to say, kids and parents, you got to meet us in the middle. Like, you got to trust that we've been around this game long enough that we kind of know what it's going to take to put a successful product on the court. And we also know what it's going to take to grow your children. You have to let that growth happen. And again, right back to that Dan Hurley soundbite. If you're just fans of your kid, then you're going to take it so personal every time your kid has a bad game, doesn't play as much as they want to play, or like just has some sort of experience. Like, this is not what basketball is, man. It's just a competitive sport where you get to grow yourself. That's all this is. Use it.
Let's talk more about the book my last question before we get on
Sure.
The book itself, you got a couple of free resources on here. The myth busting, how college coaches actually think. I think you talked about that earlier. Yes. Then you said get the most out of campus visits. Hey, ladies and boys and girls, he's giving y'all free game. Free game. Talk about that a little bit before we get on out of here, bro.
Sure. I'm a New York City boy at heart. I'm very big on the try before you buy, and I'm not trying to give you a sale. So if you're not ready when the book comes out tomorrow to fully buy the book, go check out the free resources. One is specifically the most important data points that I learned and how they impact your recruiting process. So that's the myth busting. A quick summary. College coaches don't value high school or AAU the way you think they do. They value watching you competing against somebody that they know is also going to be at that level and seeing how you do. That could be in AAU, that could be in high school, could be neither. We talked about the single sport athlete thing. Another really interesting thing, if it's a tie, like talent-wise, if it's a tie between you and another kid, the tie break will always, 100% of the time, be your attitude. And your attitude is going to be evaluated by college coaches. Another small attitude piece that you'll learn in that little free handout, part of your attitude is when you make a mistake, do you look at your parents first? Or do you look at your coach first? Do you get instruction from your coach or do you get instruction from your parents? Very little things that can tell a college coach kind of how you respond to stuff. And then the other thing, that's a really good segue, Kevin. I appreciate you. I just talked about how not every college coach is good. So I want to also make sure you're equipped with how to navigate campus visits. So both in the book and in one of the free resources, the last section of my book is almost exclusively conversations with former or current college athletes, some of whom transferred, walking you through essentially how you should do the process to not make the mistakes they made, or to make sure that you find all the information that you need the first time around. So that free document here are the 5 things when you're visiting campus. You need to leave a campus visit with 5 specific truths. One is about feeling at home on the campus itself. One is about making sure the coach actually illustrates their game plan for you. Like if you're not doing chalk talk or video with the coach, they need to give you a plan for you. And if they do not do that, you are not really getting recruited by that coach. Wow. That type of stuff.
Good stuff.
And then I would say the other thing, Kevin, that is really interesting, especially, I feel like I'm talking with hoop heads, so you guys get this.
Yes, sir.
Especially with the portal, the general public just thinks that the kids that transfer are kids that are pouty and unhappy and they didn't get enough minutes, so they're transferring. We had 2 kids that transferred to us that were starters on a team. One went to the NCAA tournament. They were looking for a different fit with a different coaching staff. So being able to hear their input on what coaches said to them and what their behavior actually looked like, those free resources will tell you how you can kind of gauge for consistency, what types of questions you can ask to make sure you kind of have an upper hand in the process yourself as the recruit.
Gotcha.
So full 360. There's a lot of different components to it, and I try to get all of it, in a condensed way in the book and in the free resources.
The book is called Nail the Recruiting Process. It comes out tomorrow.
That's some good stuff, man.
Good stuff.
Appreciate you guys. I rarely say this, but like, can we do this again? This was way too much fun.
I'm absolutely saying to myself, as you was going on, this can't be just one shot.
Yeah, we got to
come back and do this another day very soon. So we're gonna set.
I've always been of the opinion that I've always just liked to think in my heart of hearts that everyone in Brooklyn has at least one bald-headed white Jewish friend. So let me be yours, guys. Let me be yours.
What you're talking about is
yes.
Straight truth.
Yeah.
Man, 100%. Like we have like this thing that we don't even know what the database really looks like right now of the people that we've met and how you guys can kind of interact with each other and make this thing like a really big youth sports thing, because man, we've heard from a lot of good youth coaches, man, and we just have to figure out how to get this out to more people, man, because I think it'll help. I just believe it'll help with all these kids. So their parents will look crazy.
Yep, you guys are spreading the good word, and part of it is that lived experience. So seriously, like, thank you for your experiences. Thank you for the light you're shedding, because not every podcast goes like this. A lot of times I have people that are like contrarians or people that are like, I don't really buy into this stuff. This feels like I'm connecting with my type of people. And of course, you know why it is? It's because we're all Knicks fans. That's really what brings you to the table.
We have to get this thing over.
Yep. Blue collar basketball. That's what it's about.
Finish this thing. Finish this thing. Get them the heck up out of here.
Hey, real quick. Who wins tonight? Does Denver get LA out of here tonight?
Yes.
No, this
has been a really interesting year for LeBron. I love him as an athlete and for what he's done for the game, even though some of the things he does drives me nuts. D, I think that's what we were talking about before, by the way.
You're 100% correct, sir.
I will. So the thing now is, this is really the first time in LeBron's career that at the end of this season, he does not have the same value to an organization as he used to. I'm really interested in seeing what happens this offseason.
Oh, yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, he's Jared Zeidman. Let me give him some applause.
There you go.
Yeah, I know you had another question, Jared. We absolutely got to get you back, like, really soon. So we'll set that up. This has been great. Like DA said, I said, DA, this is DA's wheelhouse. He loves this stuff.
This is what, man.
Yeah.
Help the
Especially
kid.
now that I don't do it anymore.
Yes.
I love it. But I'm just talking shit from the sideline.
Yeah.
Coach, man,
we can even be a little bit more informal next time too. Like, I'll have a beer ready. This will be good. This will be really good.
Yeah. Listen, man. Now I can just talk mess to parents and coaches all over the world. So
we love it.
I'm good with it.
We love it.
We love it, man. We love it, man. But Jared, we absolutely going to have you back. Don't go anywhere. Make sure you get the book, Nailing the Recruiting Process. Make sure you get the book. Book comes out tomorrow. Comes on Amazon, everything.
Everything, everywhere online books are sold. You can grab it.
Great.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
Get mine.
Definitely. Let me just share my screen real quick. There you go. There, boom. There you go. That's
my stuff. So, and this is the cool thing about that software. So tomorrow it's going to actually feature even more things. Like as it starts launching it by midnight tonight, there will be more buttons on there in terms of where you can buy it from. So,
yes, it's needed. So
it's definitely needed. It's definitely needed, man. But listen, we're gonna get on out of here. On behalf of myself, I'm Kevin L. Warren, your host and moderator for Darryl D. Dubs Warrens, for the DA, and for our special guest, our main man, our dude from Brooklyn, man, via Long Island,
yes,
Coach Jared Zeidman. Coach, we're gonna have you back on again, man. Yo, this is the Sports Chasers podcast. Y'all be good. Y'all be blessed. Hey, we'll see y'all the next time around. Peace.
Take care.
That's a wrap for today's episode of the Sports Chasers podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast platforms, and connect with us on all social media channels for exclusive content and updates. We'd also love for you to join the conversation, share your thoughts, and become part of the Sports Chasers community. And remember to tune in next time for some more real sports talk. Until then, stay frosty.